Hey everyone, I just wanted to go over our first essay exam that's coming up here in just a couple of days, due on Friday. It was just, released to be visible today on Wednesday. Looking at the syllabus, if you want to follow along with me, I just want you to see the importance of this exam. There are only 5 different assignments that add up to 700 points for the whole course. We've got discussion forums. We've had one of those on Monday. Group study sessions. We've had one of those that's due today. You might still be working on that. And then we have 6 essay exams worth 60 points each, which, if you do the math, is about 8% of your grade for this class. Each paper is 8% and they accumulate. So you definitely want to take these essays seriously. And then there's one final paper, the integrative paper on Mere Christianity. That's 80 points. So what is this first exam? Well, I'm going to walk you through the instructions here that were just released. If you go to course content, exam 1 on ethics, it says, for this exam, you'll be presented with 2 essay question prompts. Answer both questions in a single document, but restart the essay so there are 2 separate answers included in that document. So you would open up your Word editor of choice, Google Docs, Microsoft Word, Pages, and write the sort of question 1, write your heading and your name and the class, and then write exam question 1, put the title, if you will, and then write your essay, and then just in the same document, put the exam question 2, and maybe a subtitle, something like that, about Aristotle's ethics and cultural relativism, and then answer that question. And what you're going for is 2 pages each section, 4 pages total. And the number one error that people make is that they just do 2 pages total. I don't want that to happen to you because that really hurts the grade. Okay, so 2 pages total, and you're going to be answering each question. I put a lot of instructions and suggestions on this first essay because philosophical writing may be new for many of you. So there won't be this many instructions on every essay. Don't want you to worry about that. This is just to give those of you who are conscientious and want to hit the target right in the bullseye. I want to give you a lot of information as to how to do that. All right. You are permitted to look at your notes and books when you're writing exams. Please do not use any other course or any other materials. In other words, don't be on the internet. Don't be looking in secondary sources other than just the books assigned for this class and your notes on those books. All right, so exam prompts. Question 1, it's kind of a paragraph to try to lead into the question, so I'll underscore the question after I summarize it here. Consider the way a classical thinker such as Plato make a case for morality, why we should be good, and the way a modern thinker such as J.S. Mill makes a case for morality. In other words, an argument on behalf of morality. First, summarize the moral approach each side uses, citing the text and explaining their views in your own summary and analysis. Second, reflect on the differences between the classical, that is Plato, and modern, that is Mill, the classical and modern styles of thought. Third, assess which of the two you believe resonates more with a Christian way of thinking. For example, if you believe either can resonate with the Christian thought, make a case for why both could resonate with Christian thought. If you believe neither one can resonate with Christian thought, make a case for why neither one resonates with Christian thought. Or if you think one resonates more so, then state that and argue for why it resonates more so than the other. Do not simply say they both have their upsides. You really need to stake a claim, be argumentative. This is philosophy class. We're not trying to get along. We're trying to disagree, okay? And make claims. Explain which aspects resonate and which do not. A passing exam will be no less than 1 to 2 pages for that prompt, okay? Question 2, consider Aristotle's virtue ethics and the opposing view of cultural relativism, which is explained in the cultural relativism video. Briefly explain cultural relativism as it appears in the course materials, and briefly contrast it with the viewpoint of objective morality, where all human beings are held to the same standards of virtue and morality. While Aristotle was respectful of differences between cultures, he still held to an objectivist viewpoint. How did Aristotle account for the differences between cultures while at the same time maintaining a universal morality? And that one needs to be 1 to 2 pages for that question. So you're aiming for 4 pages total. If you, let's say you have a page and a paragraph, so the total is about 2.5 pages. That's fine for this first essay, but do not write less than 1 page per question or 2 pages total. Write more than one page per question, or more than 2 pages total. Okay, I'll go over the formatting suggestions, but I just want to say something about these prompts. I got my baby asleep right here. I want to make sure I don't wake her up. So question 1 is about Plato and Mill. The key to these philosophy papers is a simple formula that I want you all to practice. If you feel comfortable writing philosophical essays and you don't want to follow this formula, that's fine. I'm just giving you a formula that maybe for the people who are new or who are less comfortable, you might want something to fall back on. The formula is summarize and respond. Summarize and respond. Summarizing the course materials to show you understand it, to show you've done the reading, you comprehend the reading as best you can, and that you can re-articulate their thoughts in your own words. So this is not just quotations one after another, boom, 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 boom. It's a kind of a summary. You have to be bold and say, I think I understand what they're saying, and I'm going to say it in my own words. You can use quotations. You can use some of their words, but don't just have a string of quotations. And don't also kind of breeze over it too much and say, Plato thinks we should be moral. Talk about Plato's view of morality. It indicates that the soul of the just person is this particular way, and that the soul of an unjust person is like a beast, and just having a beastly soul that you feed is not good. And you kind of summarize in depth his thought about Gyges' ring or the tripartite soul. Summarize and then respond. So this is where you get to say your opinion. You agree, you disagree, one part of it's good, one part of it's bad. You think that part of it resonates with a Christian way of thinking, to kind of plant the seed for the third part of your essay. So summarize and respond. Plato. Show me understand Plato from the readings and from the textbook, and then respond to kind of answer the question a little bit more. So how is this a classical way of thinking? With Mill, summarize and respond. This whole thing might take a page, a paragraph or 2 for Plato and your response, paragraph or 2 for Mill and your response. Then you move into the second part of the essay, reflecting on the difference. What are the differences in their definitions of happiness or flourishing? What are the differences in what's a good motivation for being moral? What are their differences, not just in time, of course they're different in time, but what are their differences in the kinds of things that they would say are good to do? For example, pursuing pleasure. Mill might say that's good, and Plato might say that's dangerous because it might feed the beast. And pleasure might be tempting, So this is the kind of comparison you want to do. Again, a paragraph or 2 on that. And then you're going to do your assessment. Here's what I think a Christian way of thinking about morality is, and I think that Plato or Mill resonates more with that, or that they both do in this particular way, or that neither do because of this particular thing. That would be question number 1, 1 to 2 pages. It's a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of work because you really, this is where those of you who did the reading and took notes for the last week and a half, you're feeling really good because you have a lot of material in your notes to draw from, and you've already been thinking about this for a week and a half. Those of you who maybe haven't done the reading or haven't been as diligent, checking in every day, maybe not taking notes, just thinking, I think I understand that. Now you're going to have to catch up on all that work and try to understand these readings for the sake of the exam. And it's pretty clear So your grade will reflect how well you have paid attention to the readings and tried to wrestle with this question. Question number 2, virtue ethics compared to cultural relativism. Now, I have had in the past with this cultural relativism question, I've had some people misunderstand it. So please don't write the essay until you know what that term means. Cultural relativism is different from Aristotle. Sometimes people get this confused and they think Aristotle is a cultural relativist. He's not. He's an objectivist, meaning he thinks that every culture is held to the same objective standard of morality. The cultural relativist thinks that individual cultures are held to their own distinct standard of morality. And what this question is asking you to do is to think about those two and think about how Aristotle, as a virtue ethicist, how he could admit that there are differences, there's factual differences and even differences of etiquette and maybe differences of morality between cultures, and how he would still argue that nevertheless, there's only one standard of human behavior and human virtue. Virtues are these excellent human qualities that make you a good person and help you to live a flourishing human life. So that's question number 2. It's a hard question, but again, stick with the formula. Summarize and respond. Summarize cultural relativism and then give your comments. Do you think it's true? Do you think it's false? Do you think it's confusing? Do you think that it reminds you of another argument from another text? The response is where you have the freedom to bring in your own thoughts. The summary is where you want to be strictly interacting with the course text to show me that you understand it. For Aristotle, summarize from the textbook and other places and respond. This is what I think virtue ethics is and how it's objectivist. And then bring those two together. How can Aristotle be an objectivist? So that's question number 2. And you're going to answer both of these in some essays. And now I'll just go over the rest of the instructions, formatting suggestions, and I'll mention some commonly made errors. The biggest error that people make is they don't know how to cite course materials. A citation, I don't really care what format you use. There's a lot of different formats. MLA, APA, or Chicago are the big ones. I don't care. I really don't care which one you use. I use Chicago in my papers because I don't like putting a works cited at the end, but I think MLA is the most common one that I see. So I'll just use MLA as an example. MLA in-text citations have the following format: quotation mark, the text, close quotation mark, no period, parentheses, author name, year, close parentheses, then the period. And the example is, if you're following along, is Bueller argues that, quote, Old MacDonald had a farm, unquote, upon which there were pigs, parentheses, Bueller 2006, close parentheses, period. No commas. There's no commas anywhere in that citation. I put a link to the Purdue website, which shows how to do MLA. Very helpful. You should use it. You refer back to it often, okay? Because that's going to show different electronic sources, textbook sources, videos. We have videos as part of our course content, okay? So that's how to do citations. I would love to see everybody do proper citations on this first paper. If not, I will point you to that link again, the Purdue link, and I will suggest that you teach yourself how to do citations. Many of us did not learn how to write before some persnickety professor said, I'm not going to let you get away with this anymore. I know I certainly didn't know how to do citations when I was in college. Okay, text suggestions. I would suggest you write your paper in your preferred text editor, save a file as a backup, and then upload it to Discovery. You don't want to lose your file. Please don't upload PDFs, because as the grader, I can't leave comments on a PDF. I can only leave comments on a doc. General writing suggestions. It's best to avoid long-winded introductions. A sentence or two setting up your question, your essay, and then dive right into answering the question. Definitely include source texts. In other words, include quotes from Poemen, Aristotle, Plato, Professor Wellman's lectures, the Tuggy lecture. Anything that we've read for this course is fair game, and you can quote it. A good pattern to follow is quote the text, briefly explain or interpret it in your own words, and then respond. So there's that pattern again, summarize and respond. In this case, it's quote, like quote the word for word quote, then summarize and respond. That's a great pattern to follow. General writing suggestion, don't talk about what you believe or what you feel. This is a common error that people make. People newer to academia or newer to philosophy will just say, well, I feel that Aristotle is a virtue ethicist. That's not a feeling. That's an opinion. That's a thought. That's a judgment. That's an assessment. That's an analysis. That's an argument. That's a claim. That's an assertion. That is a position. That is 100 things, but it's not a feeling, okay? So don't say I feel when you're not talking about feelings. I would say in a paper, I feel happy, I feel sad, but I would not want to say I feel like the earth is round. That's not a feeling. Also, I believe kind of just feels wishy-washy. Don't say what you believe, because for the purposes of philosophy, what matters is what you can defend with an argument, okay? So I would argue, or the evidence suggests, that Aristotle is a virtue ethicist, or I would conclude from this quotation that Aristotle is a virtue ethicist. You want to use words that have the weight of argument behind them, okay? And then I explain the grading criteria. There's basically 5 big grading criteria that we are using in assessing your writing. Comprehension. Have you written enough, and have you addressed the question completely as you can? Clarity. Is the material clear to read? Do I know kind of where you're going, when you're transitioning, and what your thought is, what your argument is, what your answer is to the question, and how you're supporting it? Cohesion. Does each part of the paper fit together well? Does it have a kind of a structure that makes sense, where you have a beginning, middle, and end, you know where you're going, and everything is supporting your answer to the question? Critical interaction, that's the honest effort to interact with the class text. If I get a paper, even if it's a pretty good paper, and it's just, I think this, I think this, I think that, the end, and there's no quotations from Aristotle in the second prompt, no quotations from Plato in the first prompt, no quotations from Mill, I'm not sure you read the course materials. I'm not sure you're interacting with them at the level of depth that we want. This is not a response paper. This is an argumentative essay exam. Everything about this class is about thinking philosophically. We want you to show that you've been thinking philosophically and to put some of those philosophical thoughts on paper. And then 5, creativity. To what extent does the student demonstrate independent knowledge of the material? This is where I kind of say the opposite. Once you do show that you have summarized and quoted from course materials, then you get to be creative. So don't start out creative, because then I'm not sure you read the materials. And don't just summarize Plato and Mill and Aristotle and cultural relativism and then put a bow on it and walk away. Do both. Summarize, then respond creatively. This is where you get to incorporate your own illustrations, your own independent thought, your own mastery of the material. You could bring in, this reminds me of one of my favorite books. You don't have to quote that book, but you can bring in, this book is really formative to me, and it reminds me of what we read in Aristotle, or it contradicts what we read in Aristotle. So creativity is welcome. It's just that it has to come in order. First summarize, then respond, and feel free to respond, with your own, putting your own spin on it. So that's what we're looking for in a nutshell. A really, really good A paper is going to summarize the course materials, respond to them in a way that shows clarity of thought, critical interaction, maybe even a little bit of creativity, so that I know you are becoming, maybe not a philosopher, but becoming more philosophical than you were a week and a half ago. Hope that helps. Send me emails with questions in the study guide. study sessions. You can post your thoughts and your reflections. Good luck on your first paper. We've got 6 of these coming up, one after another. So you will get better if the first one's the hardest, but put your effort into it, put your time into it, and you will be happy you did. Thanks.